Welcome to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. As we get older, we're always trying to take better care of ourselves. We look at our flaws a little bit longer and start to fixate on them. Friends talk to each other and discuss what vitamins they're taking. Are antidepressants a part of the equation? And what about probiotics? And then there's gut health, type 2 diabetes, bone health, and mushrooms. Yes, I said mushrooms. And what about fads? So I've asked our resident nutritionist and women's health coach, Annie Gaudreault, founder of Veev Health and Wellness, to discuss empowering women to take control of their health. Annie, welcome back to Empowered. Good to see you again.
Lovely to see you, Liz.
Okay, so let's begin. There is this term going around right now. It's called health span. Can you talk about this in relation to total health?
Absolutely. I think that we're more used to the term lifespan, essentially the amount of time that we're going to be here on this earth. Health span, however, is the more interesting part of this conversation, which means what is the quality of life that we are going to have while we are here? And it really encompasses three things. One is, are we going to be living free of physical pain and chronic disease? Second, are we going to be enjoying a cognitive health? And third, are we going to be able to have a fulfilling emotional life?
Okay, so how do we make sure that we have all of that?
Well, it is constant work in progress. We need to be taking care of ourselves through nutrition, through a good balanced diet. We need to continue to move. We also need to prevent, right, to really be on top of our overall health. We need to nurture relationships that are positive in our life and still find purpose, whether we are in the workforce or we are retired, making sure that we have things in our lives that we are, we find fulfilling.
So, Annie, I want to talk about antidepressants because I hear that they're on the rise. Like, what do we know about their side effects? And are there other lifestyle strategies that can support women?
Definitely. There are a lot, unfortunately, of side effects to antidepressants. Number one, weight gain, which makes people even more depressed. How ironic, right? We also see sleep issues, headaches, dry mouth, and GI issues. So, and there are more than that, but those are the biggest ones. Now, there are many things that we can do to support ourselves in the prevention of some of these symptoms. Number one, activity. There are numerous studies that show that being active actually is as effective as antidepressants. A healthy diet, for sure. Even things like cognitive behavior therapy will help. And of course, nurturing positive relationships in our lives.
So I want to talk about, you talked about GI, so I want to talk about gut health. I see it trending all over the place. Why is it trending so much? And should we really care about this?
It's one of those cases where, Liz, I'm really thrilled that it's trending because gut health is so important. We've always just thought that the gut was basically this digestive organ, but it's so much more than that. It also houses your 80% of your immune system, which means that a healthy gut will support healthy immunity. So your ability to stay strong and resilient against disease and, things like even the cold and the flu. And the third thing, which is really important to know, is that in your gut is your ability to produce important mental health hormones, such as serotonin, which a lot of people are familiar with, dopamine, even GABA, a number of very important neurotransmitters that keeps us in a state of well-being.
Okay, so Annie, when we come back, I mean, that's a lot to take in right now because yes, gut health is really, really important and we need to make sure that our brain is functioning as well. I want to talk about, cold, flu, COVID, and everything else, and basically what we can do to protect ourselves because winter seems to be the worst time for this. So when we come back, We'll hear about more health for women to keep us going strong. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. On today's episode, we're discussing empowering women to take control of their health. So I want to talk about the winter months. Everybody's afraid of getting the flu, catching a cold, or even COVID again. What can we do so that, we know that we've protected ourselves from any of these sources?
So this is where the fundamentals are important, Liz, right? Sleeping well, lots of exercise because it actually boosts your immune system, right? A great diet made out of a lot of colorful vegetables. Your mother was right. Do eat your vegetables. The more colorful, the better, with, red peppers and broccoli and berries and oranges. These are going to be really good for you. And then also still protecting yourself in large crowds, maybe considering a mask if you're going to be in the subway or very crowded spaces.
So let's talk about type 2 diabetes, because I see ads all over the place on TV. Every other ad has to do with diabetes. So are the rates on the rise worldwide, and is this inevitable?
Well, first of all, you're right. The rates are exponential right now. So this is really a true epidemic, what we are witnessing. Now, it does not have to be inevitable. Actually, the Harvard School of Public Health last year declared that 90% of all cases of type 2 diabetes were preventable. This means that type 2 diabetes is truly a lifestyle disease. So that means that with, a lot of personal interventions and obviously support from our doctors, we can definitely prevent this from getting worse.
Okay, so let's take it to the next level then. What can women do to prevent this? I know you said it's a lifestyle.
Yes, lots of things, Liz. But the first thing is diet, right? It is an insulin disease. So it has to do with definitely our nutrition. The other thing is more movement, right? It's been difficult. It's been challenging. We've had some very tough years of a lot of stress eating and a lot of confinement. A lot of us have also not even gone back to our healthy habits of pre-COVID. So these are very essential things for us to do. And for women in midlife, which is a consequence of menopause, we are even more sensitive to insulin. So it becomes even more important to be proactive about movement and our diet, essentially.
So speaking of movement, you and I discuss things all the time, whether it's working out or food or vitamins, supplement. You and I are constantly talking about different things. And we both agree, you need to work out. I need to work out to clear my brain, relieve my stress and everything else. And you do it for the same reason. We all know that being active is critical to good health. That's known. But, a lot of people just do cardio. A lot of people just do weights. What are the forms of exercise that we should be doing? Because they are not all created equal. Like, what should women do, especially at midlife, to really support ourselves?
This is when we really need to start actually dialing down the cardio, say goodbye to Jane Fonda and, still have a little bit of cardio, yes, but we need to really dial that down and adopt a different type of cardio where it becomes a little bit shorter, but more intense. It really is called SIT, which stands for short, intense training, where we are focusing on 10 to 30 seconds of very intense effort with some breaks, and basically put that on a rinse and repeat. This actually allows for greater lean mass and burning some of the fat, which, a lot of women in midlife are looking to do. But there's also another type of exercise that is really good for us at midlife, which is basically strength training. So embracing the weights. Right? And now what we're talking about here is not becoming necessarily a gym rat and spending hours and hours, but rather really increasing the weight and doing shorter amount of reps. This is where we're basically having the highest return on investment in terms of our health. Now, I always recommend before you go and plunge into this weights to get, the help of a personal trainer to make sure that you've got the right technique, obviously.
Perfect. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. In today's episode, we're discussing empowering women to take control of their health. Annie, before we went to break, you were talking about short bursts, and all I kept thinking of is burpees. And I kept thinking, oh my goodness, I don't like burpees. And that's the only thing I have in my brain now. So thanks for doing that to me. But one of the follow-up questions I have specifically is, what are the best exercises for women's bone health? Because that's a completely different thing.
Yes. And it's a great question because this is a real threat for us, especially at midlife, right? Bone decalcification. So we don't want to be afraid now of impact exercise. So running, dancing, jumping, I'm sorry, maybe a few burpees. Tennis is also very good. So all of these types of, exercises that put that pressure on us. The other thing that also is really good is resistance type movement. So as the name says, even movements with a resistance band, things that even just use your own body weight, such as push-ups, which most people dread. All of those things apply a lot of pressure on the bones, and that actually makes the bones stronger. So those two critical, absolutely critical for women at midlife.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about mushrooms because I talked about that at the beginning. Mushrooms seem to suddenly be everywhere. So let's talk about it. What's the deal? Is it like fancy marketing? Are they in vogue now? And wait a minute, before we go, what type of mushrooms are we talking about?
Yes, they are in vogue. They are trending, and they are trending in the kitchen. So cooking, it's really rising. But in the world of nutrition per se, we have known for a long time that mushrooms have great qualities. In the past, they were really kind of the poor cousin vegetable in the kitchen, right? And we are not talking about those mushrooms that would be classified as drugs. We are talking about these consumable, mushrooms that are either perfect for cooking or also in dehydrated forms that we know from a scientific standpoint now are excellent. And we're not talking about all of them, but some of them are excellent for cognitive health, for example, right? Memory. Some of them have been tested with people that have mild memory issues. So we now know that there are a lot of benefits, include vitality, and they can be consumed either on your plate, like shiitake mushrooms, which a lot of people are familiar with, but things that are a little less popular, such as something called lion's mane, and they can be purchased as well in dehydrated forms or tinctures. So there is substance to the hype. It's actually true, and really encourage people to add mushrooms to their diet because they're also good for your gut. And we all know what's good for gut is good for you.
Oh, so speaking of the gut, probiotics. I find them confusing. I try taking them. But should we take them as supplements? And is there a difference between them?
Yes, and I think this is a good time to remind everyone that a supplement does not compensate for a poor diet. Right? But there are moments for a probiotic that are really excellent. There are a few cases. For example, it's not always easy to be on top of our nutrition. Right? We're busy, we're traveling, all of these things. A probiotic can be very helpful. talking about travel, you're going on a trip, you're going on the other side of the world, a powerful probiotic will really make your gut even more resistant to potential, issues as you are eating, etc. The other one being that, especially if we're on a course of antibiotics, or if you are taking medications, a lot of prescription drugs, as well as OTC, over-the-counter medicines, have the nasty secondary effect of really disturbing your gut environment, including your good bacteria. So probiotics play a very important role, but I recommend first a good nutrition that nourishes the gut first and foremost.
And that's really important. I mean, taking care of our insides and how they function on a regular basis. This is something that we really need to take control of. The other thing I want to talk to you about when we come back from this break is cardiovascular diseases, because they are the #1 cause of death of Canadian women. So I want you to explain it to us, and I want you to help us not be affected by this. So please don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today's episode, we're discussing empowering women to take control of their health. And I'm joined by our resident nutritionist and women's health coach, Annie Gaudreault, founder of Veev Health and Wellness. So before we went to break, we were talking about cardiovascular diseases. Basically, they're #1 cause of death of Canadian women. So what do we do to protect ourselves, and why is this happening?
So one of the reasons that this is happening, Liz, is that, believe it or not, but estrogen used to have a protective effect on our heart. So as estrogen levels drop, this protective effect is basically gone. So we are a little bit more at the mercy of hardening of the arteries, plaque accumulation, cholesterol. So it's really important now for women to be sensitive to, again, going back to a very, healthy anti-inflammatory diet, reducing the sugar because the accumulation of sugar will translate into cholesterol, and as well, making sure that movement and activity, I know we are like a broken record here, but that movement is essential to keep that heart healthy and to protect it.
Okay, so I want to talk about hormones now, because I've heard that there is a link between female hormones and anxiety. Is this true?
It is 100% true. And this is part of this big menopause midlife, equation. As estrogen and progesterone drop with midlife, again, the protective effects of estrogen were not only felt in the heart, but throughout the entire body, including the brain. This is why women will experience multiple brain the symptomology, including, brain fog and memory lapse, but also depression and anxiety. So this is very real at this time of life for women.
Oh my gosh. So as women get older, we have so many things that we have to deal with over and above, working and having a life. But I want to talk about a lot of women that are at peri and menopause are really not being supported by their GPs. And I've heard this over and over again by so many women. Why is this?
There are a number of factors that come together. One, which is unfortunate, is that there is a lack of education in the medical curriculum. So GPs are arriving and practicing and supporting us without the knowledge of menopause. There's also old knowledge of the nurses study, which dates back to the 80s, where a lot of information got misinterpreted and it has hurt women, especially when it comes to menopausal hormone therapy, or what we call HRT. Actually, nearly 1 in 3 women report that their menopause symptoms were misdiagnosed. So, all of this together really creates a really difficult situation for women. So it really needs to get back to more education to our doctors so that we can be better supported.
You know, and the thing too is I think a lot of women as well are not as aware as well. And I've heard of a friend who went to her GP and at the age of 60 said, you know, can you please help me out? Maybe get some hormone therapy. And the GP said, no, you're 10 years too late. You should have started at 50. 60 is too late, because then there's a huge, it's got to do with your heart and heart attacks and strokes and everything else. So we really need to ask questions when they come to mind, because waiting too long is detrimental to us. Any last words? We have 15 seconds left.
I would say really get in the driver's seat of your health. Really ask questions, do the work, and be focused on the preventative aspect, because it will really pay back going back to our health span.
Thank you so much, Annie. Good to see you again.
Thank you, Liz.
I was reading a post that Annie recently wrote, and it resonated with me. She said, the biggest determinant of health is movement and exercise. So as a nutritionist, I wish the number one factor was food, but remarkably, it is movement. So ladies, make sure that you block your workout time in your calendar and make time with that appointment for you and your health. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski, and I'm here to empower you and make frugality fashionable. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.